Yes, well, your point is quite taken. Uh, yes, we have learned a lot about dealing with emergency situations as a consequence of hurricanes. We're familiar with how to deal with the aftermath of hurricanes to make sure that our folks not only are helped to get back on their own 2 feet, uh, but basically that our collective infrastructure also is able to get functional quite quickly after the destruction of uh, that's left behind as a consequence of hurricanes. We're now in the hurricane season, and I know that a lot of folks in certain areas are concerned about what to do. I know that a lot of folks are concerned because they recognize that things being economically depressed as they are, it makes it harder, I would imagine, in their eyes to see how we can pull together to take care of things. And I do get that. We also, because we're not operational underway in Tom Memphis, our major port city, if you would, we are now very familiar with what happens when you deal with tornadoes. Since Tom Memphis happens to be right in the pathway of tornadoes and we are in tornado season, it's been very, very active this year in the North Amexem, where you've had basically 1,200, well over 1,200 tornadoes blasting through North Amexem, and it's been horrific to say the least. Now, last year this time we had basically 540 more or less at this particular juncture. This year having 1,200 plus, it's phenomenal. And we've had them touch down in our North Amexem sector operations area. We command our sector operation in North Amexem out of the Moor Atlantis. And who ever heard of there being tornadoes touching down in the Moor Atlantis area? Well, it's a matter of record now that this has in fact occurred. Even though it touched down in the area that was a few miles away from our op center on the ground there. And fortunately, none of the declared Moors were harmed. None of the quote-unquote proclaimed Moors from or the quote-unquote Moorish from the temple, the Moorish Rite, and a few others not taking the area. They were not harmed, and we give thanks unto our beloved Creator and all of our beloved ancestors for that. Nonetheless, if they had been, we do have things on the ground, and we would have done what we could to assist our folks within our meager means. Nonetheless, we are familiar with what to do and how to proceed in a manner where it's effective and proficient. Here we are now again having to deal with hurricanes, which are very destructive over very large areas. And we know that because of the almanac speaking to the issue of we're going to have a very, very, very blazing hot summer this summer. That means that the water temperatures are going to be elevated. Consequently, you have the possibility of having far stronger storms than most folks are familiar with on a regular basis. So I guess what they refer to in certain circles as a hurricane level 6 is actually possible. I'm not saying it will occur this earth year, but it's possible. And because it's possible, you're talking about a hurricane stronger than Katrina was. Now that's saying something. That said, the Moors in general need to be ready for particular things to help our folks in the aftermath. I didn't want to see what we saw happen in the aftermath of Katrina, where our folks' bodies were floating in the water, and we weren't on our post to do anything about it, to deal in the proper janazah to take care of our folks. I don't want to see a situation where our folks are holed up in basically someone else's quote-unquote auditoriums in the form of their supersized stadiums, where they were herded like animals and treated as such by and large, by their accounts. And that said, that's going to require that our folks be on their post and take care of things to be able to swoop in and evacuate our folks out of harm's way, be able to provide not merely shelter, but also for those who are going to require food and water, basically pool our resources and make sure that these folks, our kith and kindred, do have the necessary food and water and get them moving, to get their lives back together again, so they can have the ability to say that they can see a bright future because they're able to be sustained sufficient to get there. We have to figure out what's most important. Now, there's a time and place for entertainment in our lives, and I get that. There's a time and place in our life to enjoy the spoils, as they say, of our hard labors when we go to do whatever we do in terms of trading our labor for wages. I get that. But we should also be able to say we pool X amount of our resources on a consistent basis to stock up on the various things that we're going to need just in case things occur and someone else needs help. We should be able to do that individually. We must do it individually. We should be able to do that collectively, and we must do that collectively. I'm strongly considering, and I hope that all of you will support me in this, I'm strongly considering having a conference in at the autumn equinox, where we would discuss particular things beyond what we've already addressed. We've already had conferences on basically non-surgical universal health care plan and food distribution network, and we're going to do that again right before Moore's Reemergence Day. And I'm considering having a conference regarding the very strong need to merge, as they say, the talents and skills of the various houses for the purpose of dealing with economic development. And I'm thinking about doing that perhaps in the Tom Memphis area of Port City, where we could see where folks are on certain things, and perhaps we can gauge what's available, what's possible, and formulate some positive strategies to do things in a positive, non-hostile fashion to promote active trade. Our folks need to resume food growth operations en masse, as there has been a lot of our folks who used to be on farms are no longer on farms. And so we don't grow as much as we used to grow, and we need to begin to do that. There are a few other things that we need to begin to engage in, and I'd like to see the leadership from the various houses. We should all come together and discuss these things and see what we can do to make these things manifest productively as soon as possible. I just think that it's smart. I just think that it's wise. And I don't see where there's any fault in it. I don't see where it does any harm to at least get together and build on the subject. And I pray that we do that. Seriously. The sooner rather than sooner we do the better. And sooner rather than later, I think. That'll be a positive thing, and we should do that.